Cool. Okay, I'd like to call to order the City of Sumner City Council study session. This is the 22nd of November and the time is 6 p.m. The City of Sumner looks forward to welcoming members of the public to its meetings in person, but until further notice, will continue to conduct its meetings 100% virtually using the Zoom platform. And the public has been invited to attend using the Zoom meeting access information that is on our website and on the council agenda. With that, I will call the roll. Councilmember Potato?
Here.
Councilmember Brown?
Here.
Councilmember Hamilton is absent. Deputy Mayor Hayden?
Here.
Councilmember Hochstetter?
Here.
Councilmember Newman?
Here.
Councilmember Reed?
Here.
Okay, as you all heard at our last meeting that Councilmember Hamilton let us know that it'd be on a jet plane and wouldn't be able to attend the meeting. So I would entertain a motion to excuse Councilmember Hamilton from tonight's meeting.
So moved.
Okay, can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Okay,
I'll second that.
Too late. Okay, it's been moved by, I think, Councilmember Newman and seconded by Councilmember Hochstetter to excuse Councilmember Hamilton from tonight's meeting. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say
Aye.
nay. Okay, Councilmember Hamilton is excused. Going on to regular business. First item is the Main Street Visioning Plan update. And do I go to Mr. Wilson first or to Mr. Windish?
You go straight to Mr. Windish, Mayor.
Mr. Windish, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Tonight I have the exciting opportunity to present to you the update to the Main Street Visioning Plan. I'm going to attempt to share my screen and make all this technology work so you can see my presentation. Get this right. I tried it a second ago and it seemed to work. Hold on. All right. Are you seeing the actual slides and not my presentation view? Nope, flip it around.
You have, yeah, you have
All
the preview.
There you go. Had it right the first
There you
time.
go.
Awesome.
Congratulations.
I'm on my way. So the objective of tonight's presentation is to provide an update, kind of review the elements of the Main Street Visioning Plan, which we went through a few times last year, but we've had a lot going on since then. So I want to provide you with an update on the elements and then go over some of the details of the Heritage Park Boone Earth design, talk about timelines and schedule, and then potential property purchase to begin implementation. And just as a fairly quick background, because I know we lived this last year, but we were in a partnership with the University of Washington, Tacoma, worked with the Urban Design Studio class for the entire academic year to look at existing conditions of the area, come up with some design concepts, and by June of last year, ultimately have 3 areas that we wanted to focus on for implementation. And the process included an advisory committee made up of business owners, residents, planning commissioners, design commissioners, city staff, and met several times throughout the process. And I felt like we had a really good representation weighing in on the design and coaching the students and guiding the process. And we also had a Sumner Connects page up. We did a couple of videos for our fall and spring public open houses. We have about 1,000 visits to the Sumner Connects page. 552 of those were considered informed, so they clicked around on the website and read some things. And 24 were considered engaged, where they left some comments and ideas that we incorporated into the plan. And the timeline, again, it started last fall, worked through the entire academic year, and in December, after the first quarter, council received a presentation as well as after the spring quarter. And then finally, we had the final concept in June. And then we came back to council in July and presented 3 priorities. And we didn't vote on them or anything, of course, but it seemed like we were headed in the right direction in terms of priorities. So I want to talk about those as well. And so the 3 main elements in the final report. So one of the reasons we're coming back to you in November, after talking to you in June and July, is that we were waiting for the University of Washington to put together really a final report. And that took a little while. The students were graduating. Anyhow, we finally were able to get a final report back and incorporate that into the plan. And so that's one of the reasons why it's taken a little while. But there are 3 main elements. And the Heritage Park site plan area, which was basically a conceptual redesign of the Heritage Park block. Re-envisioned it as an expanded plaza. We've been calling it a Woonerf, which is a term used in the Netherlands to describe streets that act as plazas. They can have cars, but it's more of an area that's slower driving, more walking. And it's also, if around Heritage Park, the vision would be that it would be more conducive to events and more easily programmed for that. And the students came up with a lot of great ideas. And I'll show you in the future slide how we're looking at making these ideas a reality. So it includes moving the stage, if you will, to the south end of the property as one of the concepts. And then the other idea that came out of the plan, major idea, was alley activation. And so it's alleys that run east and west mainly on the south side of Main Street and on the north side of Main Street. And then one of the alleys that runs north and south. And I'll show that to you here in one of the concepts. And the idea here is to take these alleys and make them potential event spaces as well. Catenary lighting potentially, redoing the pavement, and really setting it up so you could have a smaller event in these spaces and not have to close Main Street for an event. You also have more ability to maybe park food trucks back there if you have it set up for that, or creating a really attractive rear entrance to a store or a restaurant. They can take advantage of that as well. And this particular, the larger diagram shows the alley running east-west in the Ryan House is in there as well. Number 4, there's the Ryan House. So this is also intended to tie into the future Ryan House design as well. And a couple other alley concepts, the one off of Kincaid Avenue, between Alder and Kincaid, which you'll see in a later plan in some greater detail. And then the third element is the Main Street itself, the Main Street corridor. What can be done to improve the walkability there? So the concepts include arches across the roadway, bump outs for safer pedestrian crossing, similar to what's being constructed now through some of the Sound Transit pedestrian connection work that we're doing, and new street trees and different ideas that are in the Main Street corridor. And staff's recommendation, and like I said, council seemed to concur with this in July, that the Heritage Park Woonerf idea should be number 1 as a priority. Mainly because we're doing some utility work on Kincaid Avenue now, water and stormwater utility work that we are leveraging really as an opportunity to look at the whole area for really getting underway with the Woonerf design around the Heritage Park. And then the alley activation was the second priority, and finally, Main Street corridor, the third priority. And really Main Street corridor being the third priority because it's probably going to be the most extensive and most expensive, and also just requiring more time for evaluating costs and getting grants and that kind of thing. So I wanted to jump into the next slide, which is coming from BCRA, which are the engineers who are working on the Kincaid Avenue work. And then we've, like I said, expanded this into designing for the VUNERF around Heritage Park. And so we haven't done any detailed park planning. That will be at a later date, but we need to do enough to know just how the road was going to lay out, where some of the utilities might be going in terms of some of those details, so that we're not putting things in and having to tear them back out. So we wanted a pretty good idea of how this is going to look. And so you can see that on the conceptual, you have a future community center building. That's what they've titled it, to the south. You have some greenery, and again, this is conceptual. This could change and probably will change as we get into more details. But as far as the road design, you can see it's stamped concrete paving of some sort, different coloration. It would be zero curbs, so there would be no curbs. Mostly it would be bollards, kind of separating driving areas from park space. We modified the parking standards in this area, and includes catenary lighting. And they also went ahead and included the alley activation space between Kincaid and Alder, and at least conceptually in terms of the design. And the other thing that I wanted to point out is how they, in our design charrette, we talked about spilling out onto Main Street and really creating an entranceway there that would bring people into the park. And the other thing that was pointed out is this Main Street element could be designed and look the same as what's going to be happening at Wood and Main. And so you kind of have these two signature intersections bookending Main Street, which I think is a great urban design idea. And so the next thing I wanted to talk about was just kind of making this a reality. And which is kind of just, I think I've said before, this has been a pretty exciting planning process, because we've gone from vision and ideas and concepts to much more literally concrete designs. And now we're even looking at what it would take to make that happen, which would include purchasing the property south of Heritage Park. So we've had some initial contact with the property owner, said he would entertain an offer. So we pursued an appraisal and had that completed. So the area south of Heritage Park, contains a building, 12,300 square feet. It's the old post office from years back. It was appraised for $850,000. We just had a review appraisal completed, kind of double check those numbers, and it came back with the same number. And we are looking at funding from the sale of the library property, the proceeds there, and REIT money to come up with the $850,000. And so the ask tonight is, after if there's any questions on the rest of it, of course, more than happy to answer that. But the ask tonight really is to see if there's any problems that any of the council members may have with making an offer and seeing where we go from there. And so
Ryan, you're asking if there's any overall comments on what you presented so far, and then going on from there in terms of the particular property that's within, the future park expansion, is whether council has any questions or concerns regarding doing that.
Correct.
Okay, I've got two hands raised. I go Charlotte, Kathy, three hands, and then Patrick.
I just have a clarifying question. I think, first of all, thank you for all of this. It's great. I'm excited about moving forward with it. I wanted to make sure, for clarity's sake, that unlike when the city had discussed like proceeds from sale of golf course or whatnot, that you're asking our permission to make an offer on property potentially using proceeds from the library sales, but those proceeds will have been, they are in hand, correct? Like we're not spending money before we get it.
Correct. Those are in hand, Councilmember Newman. $565,000.
Right, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Charlotte. Go ahead, Kathy.
Yeah, Ryan, I had a couple of the business owners ask for clarification of the alley this weekend when I was uptown. So it will be normal parking during normal regular times, but when they have an event, it can be used for a space. Is that, am I right in explaining it that way?
Yes, it would, during normal times, it'd be used as any normal parking space.
Okay,
And I did also talk to business owners around the park. There were some concerns from some of the property owners about the parking. I was most concerned and I think rightfully so about the residents that live above the building on the corner of Kincaid and in Main Street, right at the corner there. And they have residential permits, and they would continue to have residential permits, so they'd be able to park still in the area. But in answer to your question, parking would be normal during normal operating times, and then when we had an event, then it would be quarantined off, of course, and there would be an opportunity for the event, and parking would have to shift around.
okay, thank you. It looks great.
Okay, thanks, Kathy. Go ahead, Patrick, and after Patrick, Barb.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And since the beginning of the study and the three primary options that came forward, Heritage Park was definitely the one that impressed me the most, not only with its usability, but its, I don't want to say realistic, but it's the most obtainable of the three. And I definitely am interested in moving forward with the steps that we can. Obviously, we can't do it all at once, but moving forward with it, I love that idea.
Okay, thank you very much, Patrick. Go ahead, Barb.
Yeah, can you clarify what is REIT, R-E-I-T?
That's our real estate.
Real estate excise tax.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Real estate, what was the last part?
It's real estate excise tax. It's
Excise
actually
tax.
R-E-E-T.
Right. It's not R-E-I-T, it's R-E-E-T.
Oh, okay. And then do you have any idea of what the cost would be of building the new community building?
We have not costed that out at all.
Okay.
Not pursued that.
But I think it would be great if the whole park was used instead of, having buildings that aren't city owned there. So good plan.
Okay. Other questions, comments from council members that have yet to be heard from? Council member, go ahead, Kurt, and then Cindy.
Right, I'm totally fine with this. It's wonderful.
Okay, thanks, Kurt. Go ahead, Cindy.
This one's for Mr. Wilson. The library property proceeds, was that from, did we sell the property under the library? Or what is that exactly?
That's the sale of the Main Street property where the future library will be. When we sold that to the library district. This is across from Fred Meyer.
Okay, that's right. We sold it to them and not donated it to them. Okay, great.
Right.
I'm totally in favor with us trying to buy the property, make an offer on those pieces of property. So thank you for pulling this all together.
Okay, any other questions or comments? So far, I've heard a bunch of thumbs up about the direction that you're heading, Mr. Windish, including, continuing to look at that acquisition.
Fantastic.
Okay, any other final comments, questions anybody has? Mr. Windish, do you have anything additional to present, or was that, I'm not saying, don't take this wrong, or was that it? But
That was pretty much it. I just wanted to provide just the final action steps here, the next steps. December 6th, you'll see a resolution in front of you for approval that will approve the Main Street Visioning Plan finally, and the priorities of Heritage Park, activating the alleys, and then the Main Street corridor. And then we will be looking at making an offer and pursuing purchase and all that stuff probably in the next few weeks, and then maybe hopefully concluding in January. And then February, the Heritage Park Voonerf design is in plan to go to bid and then be under construction. I do want to say that as far as the Voonerf improvements and how that's getting funded and paid for, we're still working through kind of the budget on that, and we'll be coming back to council with more details later.
okay, thanks, Ryan. Go ahead, Kathy, and then Cindy.
Yeah, I just wanted to, the street, the new crosswalk area on the street being kind of fancy like that. I love that. It's kind of like a big welcome mat on Main Street. So I forgot to mention that. That's one of my favorite parts right there.
Thanks, Kathy. Go ahead, Cindy.
So, Mr. Windish, when you bring the Main Street Visioning Plan for us to pass, I've read through this, but there was a few parts I didn't understand. Are we locked into every detail of this when we okay this at council? Or is this just kind of a plan, a looser plan, or I don't have another word for that.
It's more conceptual. I mean, clearly we had the students do the work. We like the concepts, but as we're seeing with the design of the Voonerf and ultimately the design of the park, there's a lot more details in budgeting and decisions that have to be made. So it's more conceptual than an absolute design. If that answers your question.
That really does. Thank you, Ryan.
Clarification, Cindy. Okay, any other questions or comments? Wow, seeing done. Well done, Ryan. Good, concise presentation. You got down to what the council is going to be looking at the last meeting of the year, and that it doesn't lock in all the details, which would be a concern, I think, of more than just Cindy's. So for the other council members. Okay. Anyway, well done. Thank you. Okay, we move on to item number 2, American Rescue Plan Act Committee update. Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me just get my screen share going here. All right, are you seeing my preview or my
you have your preview.
Okay, there we go.
There we are.
All right, so before you tonight is a recommendation from the Arpa Committee to allocate a little bit more of our ARPA funds for a few specific projects. Just as some background, as a reminder, Pierce County as a whole, this is all of the government entities, the county, as well as some nonprofits, received approximately $2 billion of funding from the American Rescue Plan Act. Of that $2 billion, $2.9 million was awarded to Sumner. Generally, it must be spent by the end of 2024, and it has to fit various categories of response, economic recovery, or infrastructure. The City Council created an Arpa Committee with the goal of understanding the best way to allocate these dollars and to utilize other county dollars in a consolidated way to have the most impact on our community. So this funding is our second funding request out of our ARPA funds. And for direct response, the committee is recommending an additional $80,000 be allocated. And that would be for $10,000 for facility improvements to address the transmission risk and support remote work. You may recall in the initial allocation, the council budgeted $85,000 for cubicles and remote workstations. And due to the ergonomic requests for standing desks, as well as just cost increases with the supply chain issues. We're about $10,000 short of being able to fund that. So this would be enough to cover that overage and make that project complete. The second one is equipping our emergency operations center with hybrid technology to allow for hybrid emergency operations. This is screens, cameras, microphones. Our EOC is also used for training and allows us to train all of our employees in either a full remote or hybrid environment. That's something that we have been doing for the last 2 years, rather clunky, but this would make that much easier. We're also finding with some of our lower level emergency responses, such as flooding, we're actually able to operate in a hybrid type EOC very effectively. We have our field crews that are able to provide real-time updates to what is going on out in maybe along the river, and then people either being at work or being home and able to respond accordingly. I will say it was really cool last week when the flooding was going on. We're having a hybrid EOC meeting, and Deputy Chief McCurdy is actually out on the Puyallup River live streaming to us how close the water is to the flood wall the retreat apartments put up. And just such a change from having to have everybody drive out there in city cars and look at the river, or trying to tell from a picture that's taken at night that doesn't always turn out the best. So quite impressive. The next category is economic response and resilience. The committee is recommending $25,000 be allocated towards emergency sheltering and outreach. The pandemic has obviously caused quite a bit of impact to some of our most vulnerable communities, and making it much more difficult to obtain employment, stable housing, and food. So this would be $25,000 to provide not only emergency sheltering, but weekly outreach to members in our community to try to get them into resources. We're still working out the details with this. Might be with Tacoma Rescue Mission, or it might also be with a different nonprofit in the county that's doing similar work.
Jason, just a second. Patrick has a question or comment. Go ahead, Patrick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a couple of comments. One, in regards to the three items that come up, I wanted to say how much I appreciate the ARPA committee and the work that's being done to evaluate each individual item. I mean, we've got a list of dozens of items, and it would be so easy to say, hey, those look good, and throw them out there. But we're really evaluating each one and looking at which things are going to have like the most significant impact. The one on the screen right now for emergency shelter was one that I really appreciated, the potential opportunity, because it's an active action for us to continue working to provide resources for the homeless folks in town, and not only with the beds, but with the outreach and the availability of resources. And I really appreciate all that as well.
Thank you, Patrick. Don't see any other hands. Go ahead, Jason.
Sure. And to recap, in round one, which was back in August, the city council allocated a little over $1 million of ARPA funds. This round two would be $105,000, which leaves us with about $1.7 million left to allocate in the future. Do want to point out we are pairing a lot of our ARPA projects with other funds. Some of them are, some of them in a collaborative manner with our neighbors. We are waiting word from Pierce County. We did request some ARPA funds for some infrastructure projects. They are working their way through the county budget process, which the county is voting on their budget this week. And it'll be interesting to see what makes it through. And we might have some additional funds that we can pair to do some really incredible projects within our community. There's also been general fund contributions, occupancy tax contributions, and utility contributions. One question we often get asked is, well, what's going on at the county level, and is it really reaching our community? And I've shared this with council before, but I wanted to do it again. As of mid-October, our community, the 98390 zip code, so it goes a little bit wider than the city limits proper, has received $1.6 million of federal funds for direct assistance. mostly covering rental and utility bills. And there's still, as of mid-October, about 200 applications pending. And I'm sure that number has gone down. They were really accelerating the pace that they could go through those applications and anticipated being able to get through all of those by the end of November.
Yeah, Jason, just a second. Charlotte has a question or comment. Go ahead, Charlotte.
Yeah, I was asking, I was just wondering if you had heard anything about whether the county has improved its processing time for aid requests. I just think it's really difficult for people who are hoping to get it, but not finding out for another 2.5 months later about really whether they're qualified or whether that'll come through. And also probably their landlords don't like waiting 2.5 months either.
Yeah, it has been about 3 weeks since I've gotten a last status from the county, but last time I spoke to Heather Moss and one of her staff members, it had dramatically increased. They got a couple more service providers on board. Because really what happens here is the county screens them, gets them out to a service provider, then who then does their additional screening and then distributes the funds. So
When you say
I can certainly
increase,
follow up on.
when you say increased, do you mean improved?
They increased the number of service providers
Okay,
that act as those middle folks, and with the understanding that was going to dramatically improve the process.
Okay.
Time.
all right, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Charlotte. Go ahead, Jason.
And I can see, oh, it's animated. Didn't know that.
Cool.
All right, this is just an overall summary of everything that we've allocated so far from our ARPA funds. So if council approves this allocation on December 6th, that would bring our total allocations up to 1.167 million, leaving 1.743 million left to allocate for future projects. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions. As I mentioned, this is coming before council on December 6th as a budget amendment for consideration.
Thank you very much, Jason. Questions or comments by city council members? Questions or comments? Stuff that you haven't raised so far? Wow. Mr. Wilson, you must have done a really good job because there's no more questions or comments from the council. They're ready to take it on as a budget amendment at the next council meeting.
Thank you, council. I just want to echo Councilmember Reed. The ARPA committee has been doing a tremendous lift here, really looking with an analytical eye on what is the best way to use these funds for maximum impact and long-term impact. And I really look forward to working on this next year and seeing what else we can accomplish. So thank you very much.
Yeah, good comment. Well done. Well done. Okay. Seeing none, we're going to move on to hearing more from Mr. Wilson, City Administrator report.
Thank you. I'm going to keep it short tonight. The one thing I have is have a happy Thanksgiving, and there's no meeting next Monday. Yes, that's two.
Amen. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Okay. Any agenda setting issues in terms of the council committees or council meetings? Shouldn't be too many questions in council meetings because it'd only be one left this year. Go ahead, Kathy.
I just want to say that CD committee has been canceled for this month.
Okay. Good to know. Anything else? See if I can get rid of, there it is. Okay. All right, trying to navigate in lower hands and see who's left and not cancel myself out at the same time. Oh, I counted, that was 10. Okay, so no executive session tonight, correct? Okay, if so, it would have been a surprise. Well, nice work, everyone. That brings us to the end where it says adjournment. And in as much as there is no more business before the council, this meeting is adjourned at 6:35. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving.